The Engineering, Diversity, and Inclusion Council, in partnership with the Ideas Coalition, welcomes you to our 13th episode of Walking the Walk Together. This will feature a panel of SU community leaders speaking on the School of Engineering grad school experience. It is our hope that these panels start conversations, educate allyship, and bring together all corners, cultures, generations, and hierarchies within SCU to turn words into actionable steps to help move our community forward in a positive way together. We hope we can create a constructive atmosphere that nurtures ideas and real solutions for the real issues that we are discussing. We'd like to note that this panel is being recorded and will be shared later on our SCUengineering YouTube channel, and you can also head to that YouTube channel to see any of our past Walking the Walk panels. We hope we can create a constructive atmosphere that nurtures ideas and real solutions for the real issues we're discussing. So before we start, we just want to go over a few house rules. We want to emphasize that this is a safe space and that we're all here to support. And then again, want to note that the panel will be recorded, but once the panel is over, the recording will be stopped. So I will go ahead and introduce myself. I'm the moderator of this panel. My name is Kendall Defelippi, and I am a first-year graduate student here at Santa Clara. I'm studying bioengineering, and I actually just graduated from Santa Clara in June for my undergraduate, and then I am here for the combined BS-MS program. So now we will introduce our panelists for the panel. And so we'll have the panelists say your name and just tell us a little bit about who you are. So we can start with Sophia.
My name is Sophia. I'm originally from Moscow, Russia, but I've lived in a number of places in the world, including the US. I came to Santa Clara to study electrical and computer engineering, and I'm a first-year graduate student.
Perfect, thank you. Now we can move on to Krishna.
Hi, my name is Krishna. I'm a second-year PhD student in electrical and computer engineering. I work in robotics, especially reinforcement learning in robotics and human-robot collaboration.
Perfect. And finally, Danny.
Hey everybody, I'm Danny Mendoza, second year master's. I also work as a distribution planning engineer at PG&E. Did I say what I'm doing my master's in? I haven't already have. If you couldn't tell, electrical engineering with an emphasis in power. Yeah, that's it.
Great, thanks everyone. So we'll go ahead and start our panel discussion, and then there will be time for Q&A at the end. So we'll start with some questions. The panelists, you don't have to answer every question, but yeah, this is just a space for discussion. So our first question is, what is your why? What made you decide to major in engineering and end up here today in the grad program at SCU? So I can go ahead and start that question. So yeah, as I mentioned previously, I was here for my undergraduate degree, and one of the main reasons that I wanted to come to Santa Clara was because it was a small school, and I really thought that I would appreciate that sort of environment when studying engineering, and it's something that I really enjoyed. When I was in high school, I liked math and science classes, but I wasn't on the robotics team. I did musical theater and ran cross country, so I wasn't sure if engineering was for me, but I liked math and science, so thought I would go for it. And so kind of the small community at Santa Clara kind of made me feel like this was a place where I could kind of take advantage, and it just felt more comfortable to me to start engineering when it was something that I was questioning. But I really loved my experience as an undergrad. And then with the year of COVID that kind of took away a year of lab time, I looked at the master's as a way to kind of learn more, increase my knowledge in a specific area, and also get back that lab time that I missed because of COVID. So that's kind of what brought me to SCU as an undergraduate and has kept me here as a graduate student. And yeah, I'll pass it along to whoever wants to go next.
Go.
Okay, perfect.
So, I came to engineering in general a very, very long time ago because I was always into STEM fields. It was something I always did, so there is no specific why. I just always liked it. My undergraduate was at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in aerospace engineering, and then I worked as an aircraft engineer for 3 years. So that was very good for a certain amount of time. But then I just wanted something different, something a bit more, I guess, dynamic and new, an industry that's a bit more fast-paced in general. So I started getting into programming. It was kind of connected to my old job, but I started doing it more full-time in my free time. And then I decided I want to get an education in electrical and computer engineering. And I chose to come to US because of the amount of opportunities here, the people here, and many other reasons beyond that. And SCU was just a good university with a lot of adjunct faculty in a good location, and it all kind of worked out for me that way. So that's why I'm here.
So, from my childhood, I was very much interested in electronics and computers, especially electronics, because I use it to kind of like mess with them a lot. So that encouraged me to pursue STEM engineering. When I was in my bachelor's in India, I was working with the robotics team, building both robots, which include like hardware and software. There has to be robotics is kind of like a unique field in which it has everything. You have to be expert in both hardware and software. Then only somebody can build something really useful. And afterwards, I came to US because of course, there are many opportunities here. And then one main issue that I wanted to explore while I was in my undergrad was that many people used to build algorithms and say that we have improved the technology this much, that much. They used to publish papers. But I wanted to find out what's the thought process that goes into it and try to find out my maximum intellectual capability that I could explore. And that's why I'm trying to do a PhD here.
Yeah, so I got into engineering probably around middle school, high school. In middle school, I thought I wanted to be president, and then that was a time when president couldn't get anything done. So I figured, engineers actually get things done. So I kind of went down that path. I'd always liked math and science and stuff like that, so I figured, that sounds pretty good. At this time in my life, I also started to become pretty aware of global warming, climate change and stuff. And along the same lines, politically, not a lot was getting done. And the idea of renewable energy came across what I was thinking about, and I realized that was a thing. And I decided, oh man, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And so I came to Santa Clara. I came as mechanical, just because I heard, that's the general one, and everyone, has a mechanical engineer in their company, all that. But then I switched to electrical, focused in power, because I had heard here in college that, when renewable energy generators try to connect to the grid, there's a whole lot of problems that they cause. And I'd always be asking, what are those? Why? You sure? Are you just making it up? Is it just a private company trying to make things up so that they don't put more generators onto the grid? So I wanted to investigate more and more and more into why that was. And now I'm actually the guy who analyzes the impacts of a generator before it can connect to the grid. So I'm really happy to say that it came full circle in that way. And that's my why. I get to deal with renewable energy every day, understand its technical impacts, and kind of be an advocate for it. So that was great.
Great. Cool. So we'll move on to our next question then, and that is, how would you describe your grad school experiences? If there were any biggest surprises, challenges, or successes? I'll pass this one along first and then maybe add on to it. I am only 8 weeks into my program, so I'm still in the early stages, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say kind of further along.
I can start if you want. So overall, I think it's been a good experience. There hasn't been anything overly negative or challenging in terms of how grad school started and how it's going, except for some classes, of course, but that's normal. I would say that the biggest challenge, especially if you're starting in not in fall, but in spring or winter like me, is kind of finding the correct community, finding the correct network, and this is not only professionally speaking, this is also for social life. Which again, is a normal thing when you move to a new place. You're not going to have friends or people or work at first. So I would say that was the biggest challenge, is to kind of understanding how this place works and who is here, and who you can be with. So, but then after 2 quarters, I would say it was kind of started going into place, because there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of people and groups at Santa Clara and beyond. So, yeah.
So, my grad school experience here was great. I was able to like work on like my favorite topics on robotics and reinforcement learning. Whenever like I try to do something, like it usually fails. Like the model training, something like that fails. But then it's like very sweet when like something works, and then like you also find out that like there is a unique tool which can like sync all of your logs directly to the cloud, like weights and biases, something like that. But like the good thing about the grad school and the whole PhD experience is that like there are like many places where like I felt like I need to like improve a lot, and then I improve a lot, and then like seeing back like 1 month or 2 months before, when I did not have like an ounce of idea about anything, I'm able to like go forward a lot. So those were like the incremental successes are the ones that I can keep track of and feel good about myself.
I would say the experience has been pretty rewarding so far, just the opportunity to kind of choose what I learn. I've been taking advantage of the independent study that we have here, because ran out of power classes to take. So kind of been doing my own thing, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate being around other graduate students and other PhD students who know a lot more than me, and I can just go and talk to them, and these are some of the smartest people I'll ever run into in my life. Yes. Like, it's really helpful. It's really helpful to be around, like, people who can help you out. A textbook can only take you so far. YouTube can only take you so far. Someone who's tried to do before what you're trying to do now, oh man, that'll save me months and months, years and years trying to figure this thing out. But yeah, I'd say another part of the experience is kind of dealing with the kind of work and school and life balance. It's a little challenging, trying to have time for everything else in life. But I think it's worth it. I appreciate the flexibility that we have in, what classes we take, how we get our requirements in. But yeah, that's my main challenge.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, just to speak on my, brief grad experience, for me, the transition was pretty seamless so far, because I came from the undergraduate program, so I was kind of like familiar with my professors and familiar with like how the classes were run, so I can, I definitely feel like I was kind of lucky to kind of miss that sort of hurdle. And yeah, I agree with the panel that some of the flexibility is really nice. I haven't started research yet, but I'm going to begin research next quarter, and so I'm really looking forward to being able to like take advantage of the expertise of the professors and the facilities at Santa Clara to learn more and really get hands-on experience. So that's definitely a high point for sure. So kind of in the same vein, our next question is, what has been your biggest support systems over the last year? Danny kind of already touched on getting to reach out to people within the program and professors and all of that, but if anyone else has particularly any sort of support systems that have been helpful.
I can add SHIP, it's the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Since I already did my undergrad here, I already knew that community pretty well, and I feel welcome every time I show up. But there's societies like that for everyone. I mean, aside from SHIP, there's NSBE, SWE, ACMW, and all of these organizations are always more than happy to welcome graduate students to their meetings, to their email lists, to pretty much anything. So that's always been a great support system here, and I encourage everyone to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I can add on to that. I was also really involved in SWE as an undergraduate, and coming in as a grad student, I was thinking about my experience with SWE, and I just thought that there's a lot more that a club that kind of has that sort of kind of like standing and foundation already could do to help grad students. So this year I'm serving as Santa Clara SWE's first graduate representative. So the goal is to kind of like outreach more to our graduate students. I know I talked to one of my friends who's a year older than me as a graduate student here, and when I sent out the first email about like, you know, graduate students getting involved in SWE, she sent me a text and she was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, I didn't know if I could like, was still allowed to come to events. Like, I used to go to SWE stuff all the time, and then like, I just never went anymore as a grad student, and I didn't know like what the deal was. And I was like, no, you guys can definitely come. You know, if there's undergraduate events that are maybe, you know, more catered to younger students, then that's not as applicable. But if we're having a study session, then grad students should like feel welcome to come. Or, you know, just like a trivia night or movie night or something like that. So that's something that we're hoping to do this year, is to kind of reach out to grad students more. We did have our first graduate student specific event this past Tuesday. It was just like a mixer, get to know each other, and we had about 10 people show up, which I think is pretty good for a first event, and to kind of, you know, hear what students had to say and what they're looking for. And so we're hoping that like moving forward into the winter and spring quarters, that we can hold more events to kind of reach out and expand the community, because as you mentioned, it's really important to have a support system, and especially if, you know, you maybe didn't go to Santa Clara or don't live super close by, it can be hard to find that community. And because the graduate community is just kind of smaller compared to the undergraduates, yeah, definitely we want to try to build as much community as we can with grad students. So definitely be on the lookout for, you know, more SWE events for graduate students, and all are welcome to those events as well. We love our allies, so. So yes, I can agree that clubs can be a great sort of support system.
I can also add on a club that was a good support system to me. It's the Russian speaking club on campus, which kind of formed by accident last year, because a number of people overheard each other speaking Russian, and they kind of connected and created a Telegram chat, and now it's grew to, I don't know, 46 people or something. And it's not, you do not have to be a Russian speaker, it's, you know, for everyone. Very informal, very relaxed, no official meetings, you know, it's just kind of, yeah, people meet, you know, and do stuff on weekends, so that was always a good support system for me personally.
So I can add to that, like, as a PhD student, you usually don't get like too much time to go to some other clubs or even like explore, because we always run by the deadlines. So like I would say that like the friends we usually have in the electrical department, they are our support system, and of course like my advisor and chair have helped me a lot, like for transitioning from like Arlington to Santa Clara. That was very good.
Great. Yay, I'm glad we all have support systems to lean on here on campus. So yeah, our next question is shifting gears a little bit. We've kind of talked about some of the high points of our experience here, but the next question is there anything that you wish that faculty or administration could do differently in general? Anyone want to start?
I can just say from my personal experience, I do live in San Francisco now, so coming down here for class can be something that I want to avoid if possible. So there's times where I've emailed a professor and asked, like, hey, is it any way possible for there to be, for me to just get the recording, or for you guys to have Zoom and it's just me in there. Like, it's it's kind of awkward. It's a little bit weird, but it would save me some time. Is this something I can explore? And it just isn't something that I've had success at yet. It's not. I mean, it's not the biggest deal. I like being here. It's just the drive, and then when I'm here before class, I usually have class 5 to 7. Before class, I'm usually trying to find somewhere to work from my laptop and just huddled over. So it can be a little bit of a challenge. It's something that I've been able to get over these past few years, well, year and a half or less. But I would say that's my biggest challenge. And that's why I so appreciated the independent study, because I could just read my book at home and learn the same information.
Okay, I guess I can just say, yeah, I definitely, enjoyed my time, and I've, really appreciated specifically like the Bioengineering faculty that has kind of been with me through my undergraduate and now to support me through my studies and stuff. As we're trying to get our graduate SWE, chapter kind of like running, sometimes some more support from certain groups on campus could be helpful. Sometimes like SWE has a budget for undergraduate, events. They maybe don't have a budget for graduate events. So that's something that we're working with this year. So that's just one thing off of the top of my head that I could think of.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All these wonderful clubs that exist on campus tend to be geared towards undergraduate students, which is great, but, well, now we have Kendall representing SWE. It would be nice to have these events for graduate students too, because probably then more would attend such events and clubs.
So, in regards to the problems that I think the PhD students face, it would be regarding the pay. The pay is let me say a little bit less. The starting unit of the starting rent of the graduate housing is the pay we get. So we cannot afford the graduate housing of the Santa Clara itself. And then I don't know. And then the TAs usually get like a little bit less than RS. So that actually makes a lot of impact, I think. And then as the pay is less, I have to live in a accommodation, shared accommodation where in a 2 BHK house there are 6 people, and I would have to live in a hall with 24 hours somebody cooking in the kitchen, which really affects the mind because you have to do research at the same time. If the housing is not really affordable, it's really hard.
Just to add on, this isn't from my own experience, but these are things that I've heard. The PhD students really do have it tough. And sometimes there can be an attitude where your advisor will say, oh, I had it tough when I was a PhD student. Deal with it. But I just don't think that's a healthy attitude towards our students. They're putting in a lot of work. They're really intelligent people. They could have just grabbed their master's and gotten a job, grabbed their bachelor's, gotten a job, but they decided, I really care about this, I really like this, and they're taking time out of their lives to really dedicate themselves to it, and I think they deserve better conditions, honestly.
Yeah, I have a friend in the PhD program in the mechanical engineering department, and she reports a very similar thing, so.
Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing, your stories, the stories that you hear from others. The reason that we're here today is to kind of bring these things to light and to have a discussion about that. So, yeah, I really appreciate your honesty in bringing up these topics. So then, this is kind of moving off the previous question, but as a graduate student, what are your hopes for the School of Engineering grad program and the entire School of Engineering and SCU moving forward? I think we've already kind of, talked about some areas of improvement, but if anyone else has anything that they think can be added kind of more generally for, the School of Engineering or school. Yeah, I think we kind of like brushed over that for the most part. So then we can just kind of move on to our last like bland question for our panel, and that question is thinking about next year. Like, what advice would you give to your peers or other students who are considering, starting a graduate program or a PhD program? And then if you also had advice for like faculty or administration regarding like how to approach their graduate and PhD students. We can start with advice for peers.
For those peers that are, studying here at Santa Clara, undergrads here who want to go on for a master's, try to knock out as many master's classes as you can in your undergrad. I believe there's a limit, I think it's 20 units, but that's just units that you don't have to pay for later, so 100% do that. I think you do have to sign up for the 4+1 program to do that, but I believe that, if it takes longer than 1 year after, they're not going to say, oh yeah, you have to pay back all those units that you got back in senior year. So that was something that I was able to take advantage of. It was really helpful. Another piece of advice for undergrads, or for anyone actually, would just be like looking at what classes will be offered, years down the line. Because undergrad, you're here all the time. You can take classes pretty much whenever, unless it's conflicting with another class. But now, you might only have time for 2 classes a quarter, 3, sometimes even 1. And if any of your classes conflict, you're toast. You gotta do it next year, and try to explore any flexibility that you can get for meeting your requirements. Definitely look into it. The requirements aren't as hardline as they seem in a lot of cases. So definitely pursue the flexibility, because you might find it. So that's very general, but.
Yeah, I would agree. I also tried to knock out as many units as I could in my undergrad, and that was really helpful. Financially, and also just kind of to move along with the program in a faster way. And in terms of classes, it's definitely nice to have a wide variety of classes that are offered in graduate school, but that means that class is probably only offered once a year. So definitely agree with what Danny had to say. Anyone else have any advice for peers or other students?
I would say for peers who are regular grad students, so they didn't come from undergraduate, like Kendall, for example, when they come in, don't be afraid to reach out to people and systems within the school, because as we discussed before, it seems sometimes like a lot of things are geared towards undergraduates. They're not necessarily. They're available to everyone. You just have to attend events, and this has to do with, let's say, if you're looking for a job, so there's career events. If you're looking for, to do a PhD, it's probably okay to reach out to other people in the school who might be able to help with that. And I would just say don't be afraid to reach out to the systems that exist. They will maybe help you. So.
Yeah, for the people who want to pursue PhD, what I would say is the same thing as everybody said, to reach out. And if you actually talk to us regarding your interest, then we would definitely tell you what would be the most interesting subject that they would take up, because I feel like most of the master students, they say that we are interested in this, but we would actually help you figure out the subtopic in which you might be the best interested in. So always talk to any of the PhD students. We are here to help each other out.
Great. So that brings us to the end of our panel Q&A session. So again, we'll just go through any closing statements that anyone has. I think that, again, we've gone over that a little bit, but just for me, I would say that, I have really appreciated my time as a graduate student here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to, continue to learn and continue to be here at SCU. As you mentioned, there's definitely areas of improvement, but overall, my experience has been positive so far. So I'm very thankful for that. and I definitely would recommend a graduate program for people who are interested in it, but you definitely need to decide if you think it's the right thing for you. Any other closing statements?
I would just sum up what I've mentioned. I appreciate the flexibility. I would encourage us to keep exploring that because people aren't doing a master's just because they want the degree. They're dedicating their time into it. So if they say they're studying, they probably are. They probably actually care about it. And then also the PhD pay. I mean, I'm outside of that situation, but I do want to emphasize that is something that needs to be talked about. I'm not sure if it's an issue that was around way back then, and it's just continuing on. I know there's a lot of issues at Santa Clara that a student brings it up, someone says they're going to address it, the student leaves, never knows if it's going to be addressed, and then the cycle kind of repeats itself. I don't know if that's the case with this, but I do think it's an issue, and just want to say that.
Alrighty, well, before we get to our audience Q&A, I want to thank our panelists for making time today from their busy schedules to join us. I want to thank you all for sharing your perspective, stories, and helping us to further the conversation on such important issues and helping us to move the SU community forward in a positive direction. So as a reminder, the event has been recorded and will be posted up soon to the SCUengineering website, and we can all be on the lookout for the next episode of Walking the Walk Together during the winter quarter of 2023. So thank you, happy holidays, and have a lovely evening. And then now we can do the audience Q&A if anyone in the audience has any questions.
I'm curious for that last question, the advice that you guys would give for faculty and how to better support the graduate students, you guys as students.
One thing I can just think of, one thing that came up at our graduate SWE event the other day was for me being an undergraduate here, I was very aware of kind of what the research opportunities were within my program, because senior design included that and stuff. But there was a good amount of graduate students coming from elsewhere who said they they wanted to get involved in research but didn't know kind of what professors were available, had openings and stuff. And so you can always reach out to professors, but there's so many that maybe if there was a way to kind of better communicate to mainly grad students, but even undergraduate students to an extent, what professors and faculty are open to research and have paid research assistantships available, that could maybe be helpful for students that want to get involved in research and also can get some tuition assistance as well.
Kendall particularly, my name is Bonita Banducci. I teach gender and engineering in the graduate program. And I'm very interested, I'm grateful that you're expanding SWE into the graduate program. So I'll be letting my students know. And would like to know how much you want faculty participation in your events. I mean, I presume, there are times when they're just social, but other times.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that the students who came said was they'd be interested to have professors come and speak, maybe about their experiences, about their research. So there's definitely room for collaboration with professors. For day-to-day events, I think will be good to go. But yeah, I would definitely be interested in doing panels. So I can maybe reach out to you for that. And yeah, just thank you for your support.
I was just wondering, how does grad school academia compare to working in the industry, based on your experiences?
Maybe Danny knows this one first.
You were with more experience than I
Go for it.
I can talk about the comparison. So I'm a personality PhD, so I would say academia is a strong word, for a master's program. But that doesn't make the schedule any better, of course. So with work, it really depends on which industry and what kind of job you're working. So this will vary vastly from person to person. But what is for sure is the grad experience, at least in my field, it's much more busy. Because you always have to study for exams, you have to complete projects. For us, there are typically also big coding projects, so it's not something you just can do in 5 hours and get rid of for the rest of the week. And on top of that, if you happen to be doing research with PhD students and professors, add that on. Or some students have work on top of all their classes, and I know some of them are even doing full-time studying somehow, I don't know how. But, so it's gonna really depend. But the difference is that here, the graduate program, or I'm not sure about PhD program, but graduate program will give you more flexibility in terms of it's really that time for you to explore. So let's say you're interested in multiple things, you want to do different projects, or if you're more social type, do events and stuff like that. Graduate program is definitely a great time to do that because you don't have to just focus on one thing yet. You kind of do because it's a graduate program, but still you have a bit more flexibility to explore what you want to do further in industry or a PhD if you happen to want to do that. So this is what I'm really enjoying about the grad program now. It's that gained flexibility of exploring different kind of intricacies of my field. So yeah.
Yeah, I would add on, one of the main differences is that in academia, I feel like several things, like in one way, you're kind of pushed to think about things in a really high, not a high level, but like really intricate things without having given a background on the practicality, like, oh, is this actually needed? Is this going to be useful, or is it cool engineering that you get to slap on your resume? And a lot of times it is needed, it is in the future, but you aren't really given the best analysis tools. I feel like, especially in research, you might have to reinvent the wheel like 5 times because you had to design this thing that there has been this tool in the industry that just does it for you, but because here we don't have those tools because we're in a learning environment, you kind of do it yourself. Like, I know you have to do power flow like by hand. For me at work, like I'll just pull up a circuit, put in some stuff, and boom, I have the power flow on the whole thing. And that just goes to say, like, I feel like in industry it's so much more focused because, the principal reason is because they have to pay you for your time, so they really want you to be efficient. But the lack of emphasis on being efficient with the time of the students who are doing projects, I think is a weakness because, yeah, these are really intelligent people who know what they're doing, but when they have to start from scratch every single time, yes, they're kind of learning the fundamentals, but if they already learned it and they're just redoing it over and over again, I don't think they're gaining a lot from it.
I have a question. Well, one, a comment. Thank you all for just sharing your stories. I'm Joanna Thompson, the Director of the Office for Multicultural Learning here at SCU, and as somebody who also has a PhD, not in engineering, in the social sciences, but definitely hearing your stories reminded me of my time doing research and just kind of the highs and lows and ups and downs, so definitely empathize with you all and what you're going through. But one thing I wanted to ask you all, going back to kind of like that sense of belonging and community building, we want to make sure that offices like ours are reaching out to grad students, but sometimes we wonder if we're communicating in the proper ways, whether it's email or social media, the digital boards. I'm just curious, in your perspective, what would that proper communication look like? So that way you all know about the events that we host and programs that we have, and just making sure that you are a part of that community with us.
I mean, everyone feel free to jump in, but I email is pretty good for me. I am reading my SCU email very frequently, so that would be the best, I'd say, for me. Social media is good too, but like if you're not following, then you're maybe missing it. So everyone has their email. So that's my thoughts, but would love to hear what other people think.
I think the email bulletins everywhere. I think that would be the best because like I have like so many email filters and AI filters on top of it, so that things can like go. But yeah, like I think the bulletin boards are.
Actually, to expand on this, I agree. If you include it in general SCU email, that either people are filtering it as spam or just deleting it, email, for example, works for me, but maybe more if it's geared towards, let's say, multicultural learning. So it's kind of in the title, and it's a bit more clear. A lot of things SWE is doing, they're often reposting certain things. Maybe that could be a way, reposting through other organizations, because people tend to read emails from organizations they follow more. So I think that could be a method as well.
Yeah, and I know OML already does this, but going through the organizations that already exist that have like their kind of with the ear to the pulse, is that the saying? Yeah, to the students, like continuing to collaborate with them is I think one of the better ways, because like they were mentioning, email inboxes, like it's just so much. There's so many emails. Like maybe I would read your email if I could even see it. But yeah, I would just say collaborating with those organizations, and hopefully graduate students can get more of an opportunity to show up to those events, like you were saying, Kendall. So that just creates the network there. Yeah, because if OML shows up to a SHIP meeting, I know they're about to say something really important,
Well, thank you. It's very helpful. And just know that the Office for Multicultural Learning definitely supports you all as grad students. We're located in a house right behind SWIG, 832 Market Street. So if there's like ideas or ways that we can better serve you all, like feel free to let us know. Like we're here for you all too.
Another question I have, if Sophia, Christian, if you can share, what are some of the things you would feel that international students go through that others that are non-international students don't have to go through, that you guys are dealing with this can be a burden, and ways that you would like to see support from administration, from the School of Engineering, from others, that would be a support to kind of bridge that gap?
I would say this is kind of a hard topic because it's so I've moved countries multiple times, so it's not my first time. But first time can be, of course, difficult for people, and I discussed this with some SCU students, and it's true, especially if the culture is vastly different. So it's kind of hard to bridge that gap artificially, not artificially, but with a specific system. I would say the best is these clubs that we all mentioned. For example, we have the RSC club. I know a lot of students from a lot of different places have their own clubs as well, and it's typically not just one country. It's typically, combining certain people in one, like we do, for example. And I would say those could be helpful at first, because you will meet a lot of people that you're kind of more used to seeing, I guess, especially if it's your first time. And then they'll help you meet others, because these clubs will often have other international and American students. So I think that will probably be the simplest thing to start with. So if those clubs could be advertised somehow and people can find them, I would think that would be the best. Other than that, it's honestly just time and some sort of people being proactive, and maybe certain events. I know you've been organizing them recently, not just for international students, but events that can connect students together so they can all meet each other.
So Sophia, I have a follow-up question. Since you've been to so many different countries, does the U.S. create barriers for you that other countries didn't?
I would say US is one of the easiest.
Okay.
Yeah, because people here are typically very open to meeting foreigners. So, especially well, here it's not even a question because this place is so multicultural, the Bay Area. But I've been in other parts of the U.S. that are not as multicultural, and still was very, very easy, in my opinion, at least.
So for PhD students, I think one thing which I already touched upon is the pay, and the second thing is the transportation. I believe many universities actually provide the bus passes for free, and even San Jose State University gives everybody the bus passes. That would actually, I feel, kind of help because if people would live a little bit far, but the bus passes in the Bay Area also are so expensive. So I feel like everything is great except the pay. That's it.
I remember Ciara back in the day wanted to get VTA passes for everybody. Does anyone know if that ever took off?
I think there's a petition out. I recently saw
It's still a
something that they're
petition.
trying to bring it back, but yeah, there's still grumblings
Okay,
about
it's
that.
still 2017.
Yeah.
I think most schools have some sort of free
Yeah.
buses. My previous university definitely had.
Yeah, they have been in other two universities, every university.
Yeah, no, I mean VTA does suck, but maybe it'd be helpful.
I'm just a real, small thing, but I know I was eager to have the cafe open at night for graduate students. And I teach on Saturday and it's not open. Does it matter to you that the cafe isn't open on Saturdays for when so many graduate students have classes? Or do you not have classes on Saturdays?
So I usually eat outside because the campus or anything is very expensive.
Well, that's important to know too.
Yeah, yes, common topic.
Yeah, I bring lunch every day.
But with the cafes, I personally also typically make everything myself. Yeah, but I know that there are a number of people who would like things to be more open on weekends. Again, that's not personally me. Because a lot of the other universities again have more of an infrastructure that's geared towards 24/7 studying. And I heard that Santa Clara only does that during finals weeks. I think they keep some things. You probably guys know better because you've been here longer.
Adding to the Sophia's comment, so the building hours are from I think 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the night, and if anybody wants to study, apparently they cannot. The security officers escort the students outside, which is I feel crazy because in any university, anywhere you go, university is the place where you can 24/7 study. Here even that is restricted.
And if you have a room full of 6 people, it's unreasonable. Yeah, that's why it should exist technically.
So there's no place on campus that you can study?
So I have as I'm an RA, I have access to the buildings inside. But as a master's, if somebody is a master's student and living 6 people there, they are not allowed to study inside. It's probably many other places inside the campus.
Sorry, it's okay, go ahead.
I was going to say I did manage to get 24-hour access to Kiwi, so just need to ask in SCDI. Yeah.
I know the library has pretty good hours, but I do think it's only 24 hours during finals, like you were mentioning.
It is, yeah.
I mean, I'm now happy that at least SCDI is automatically open from 8 to 10 on Sundays now because it was closed all last year.
Yeah.
You couldn't go in that building at all on Sundays.
Johnny?
Yeah, I'm also a grad student here, and I was just kind of wondering, how do you guys study? I work also, so I'm doing part-time. Sometimes after work, I was so exhausted, it's it's really tough, especially on the weekends, trying to keep up with my hobbies, see my family. It's rough.
No, I feel you, bro.
I can say the social life, hobbies, and family stuff, to a minimum. You would say.
Yeah.
I am a full-time student. I don't work, but I take a lot of classes, so it's all the time. It's just a lot of time management and those things to a minimum, but also making sure to keep the correct balance, because if you only work and study 100%, you will go crazy eventually. So it's just kind of making sure you concentrate, let's say, really hard Monday to Friday. If you can't concentrate on a task, you quickly switch to another one. If you can't concentrate on that, you do another one that's even easier. Make a system for yourself that works for you. And then let's say you dedicate one day where you're just not going to touch anything. Like the schoolwork, work, and all the associated responsibilities. And that has worked pretty well for me, because I did a bit worse in the previous quarters, and doing this kind of helped a lot.
Yeah, I want to add on to this because of the same situation that you're talking about, Johnny. That's why I bring up the efficiency thing, because especially for a lot of us, our time is limited to do this. Like I have, if I get a homework assignment where a lot of it is just like little tricks that I'm doing, little mathematical tricks that are old trick things that I learned, and if I look at it for like an hour, I'll see it and I'll do it, but a lot of it isn't really related to the concept of that class. And a lot of times I have a homework that's significantly harder than the midterm, specifically because we're not focused as much on the actual concepts of the class. So I feel like if homework assignments, etc., were more focused on the things we're actually supposed to learn in that class, it would save time for those who don't have a lot of it. And at the end of the day, if you don't understand the concept of that class, and that's why it's taking you a long time, that's an opportunity for you at office hours to actually talk about the things you didn't understand. And that was the same thing I was talking about with the efficiency of the tools. Like, if you're reinventing the wheel every time, you don't have time to actually focus on your research and the thing that you got into this for. You're doing power flows when you learned power flows like 5 years ago. And it's just, because the same thing, like Johnny was saying, it's tough to balance your hobbies and school and work and all that. I feel like I had to abandon all my hobbies. The one good thing that I'm still good at, is like hanging out with my friends. Because I'll drop anything for my hobbies. But, that's because I decided, I'm going to be bad at all of this, but the things that I'm going to be good at is work, school, and being a good friend. Like, that's it. Everything else I had to toss to the side. So, I'm glad those are the things that I prioritize. I mean, a family, of course. Don't gotta mention that, you already know. But, yeah, it's tough.
And actually, I want to add on to that. He is right that you have to not forget about friends and family, because you can study everything in the world, earn all the money in the world, but if you lose your friends, it's going to be a bad situation. So you have to prioritize also keep that going.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing what you guys have to say, because as I'm starting out in my program, I felt like I was go so good on top of everything, and then after midterms, I just felt like I was fried, because I was just it was just go all the time. So I appreciate the tips, because I think they'll be helpful for me as well.
I'm also curious about the stress of getting classes. Whether I have an unusual class, but it fulfills a requirement, and I have so many students clamoring to get into it sometimes, and I want to know whether that's typical or, is it stressful? I get concerned about the students. Is there something that you would want, is there something that needs to be done so that it's not such a stressful experience getting into classes?
Yeah, I haven't really, the Bio-E department is much smaller than some of the other departments in the grad program. So for my Bio-E classes, I haven't had a problem, but I know the computer engineering and other majors, that definitely might be more of a problem.
Yeah, I can just say that for this upcoming quarter, I was planning on taking a class to meet a specific requirement, and registration comes around and that class is nowhere to be found. So just having more, I know my department has a PDF somewhere, it's floating around somewhere of like proposed course offerings that goes like pretty far out into the future, but for that to be up to date and reliable would be really great, because for a while I thought I could count on the document, and fall of last year I was planning out all the way out to here because I have so many constraints on when I can take classes, what kind of classes I can take, what classes I want to take too, because at the end of the day I'm here to learn the things I want to learn. So that document and similar ones being reliable is really important.
Yeah, like in undergrad, like the registrar like posts like a whole like tentative course list for like winter and spring. And so if something like that could happen for grad students, that would be helpful, because yeah, especially if you're only taking a few classes a quarter and you're trying to plan in advance to like see how long it's going to take you. If it turns out the classes change, that can like really throw a wrench in your schedule.
Yeah, and or also making the requirement more flexible. Like if this class that I was trying to get don't really need that class, I can meet it in another way. I know that's the flexibility. I did mention there is flexibility. I don't know if there's flexibility about this particular thing, but to know that there is would ease the stress, because at the end of the day we're talking about stress. I'm confident that I'll be okay in the end, but it does cause some stress.
For the grad registration experience, I personally did not have issues at all. Maybe it's because grad students have priority registration, and it still goes in the hierarchy of who's graduating first, or has more units. But again, when you're only starting, you still have 2 years to complete your courses. So even the busiest courses, the core requirements, I didn't find it hard to get into them. Yeah, maybe some people, I heard from undergraduates, there's more of a problem, especially including seniors who are graduating and can't get into courses they need to. Yeah, but on the grad side, in my experience at least, yeah, maybe I'm correct, but it's been pretty good.
Yeah, for enrolling into classes, I had like some issues, so I made a temp monthly extension, like automatically press some buttons. So yeah, but yeah, that's why like they get